In the videos that follow, in which I teach you how to program, I'm going to use the Linux development environment. I'm also going to use the Vim text editor. Now, you don't need to know Linux, nor do you need to know how to use Vim in order to understand what I'm going to teach in terms of programming. But I've created this video so I can remove some of the magic for those of you who may be interested in knowing what it is I'm doing. So let's start with the Vim. So if I'm creating a brand new file, I can just type Vim and give it the file name. Like that. And it's ready for me to start doing things. But we're going to start with a file that I'm going to use both as an example and also a reminder to me what I want to talk about. So let's get out of this and let's look at this file. So Vim has several modes. Right now we're in what's called normal mode. And the purpose of normal mode is so I can type various commands. So these letters you see here are basically commands to Vim to do certain things. If I want to actually type text like what you're reading here, then I press lowercase I for insert mode. And keep in mind that for many, if not most, Vim commands, they are case sensitive. So when this says capital A, it means capital A. When this says little w, it probably means little w and so forth. So if I press I right now, you see at the bottom here, it says insert, and now it's ready for me to start typing. Pressing escape gets me back out of that mode. And now I'm going to run the command by pressing lowercase u to undo what I just messed up. Right? There's also command mode. Press the colon and now I can type things like if I want to save, I'd press W to write and Q then to quit. Or if I just want to quit, I can do this and get back out. So let's go back into that. So what can you do while you're in normal mode? Things like this. So let's say I'm on this line right here. And I'm actually showing you what lowercase o does. Pressing O created a line in here for me to type to or type on, and it also put me into insert mode. So now it's ready for me to do this. So I'm going to do that. Navigation is through these keys. So occasionally in some of my videos, because I've already created the programming videos, in some of those videos you'll notice I'll mistakenly do something like this. I'll think I'm over here typing, but I'm really over here. And I might do something like this or something like this. Well, actually what I've done is I thought I was over here trying to edit and I was trying to press these letters to move around. So H is doing this, J is doing this, K is doing this, L is doing this. Oh, excuse me, this is H, J, K, L. And I will admit that for most of these, I do them without even thinking about what I'm doing. I actually had to look a lot of these up because I burned them into my fingers, but I no longer consciously think about it. You'll see me doing stuff like this, pressing the W. See how I'm jumping each next word? Or if we go backwards, I hit the B. Sometimes when we go to the end of the line, so press $sign. The beginning of the line is a 0. Sometimes I want to go to the end of the current line and then start typing. So I want it in insert mode when I get there. So capital A. Now let's me start doing this. If I want to go to the end of the file, G, 1 capital G takes me to the top. And actually the 1G is a special case because I want to go to the line 5. I would just type 5 capital G and it takes me there. All right. What about changing things? So if I want to change the current line, CC, and now I'm in insert mode, I can type stuff. If I want to change the current word, CW, lets me basically delete that word and now put me in insert mode, so now I can type something new. In order to copy, you use yank, so that's what the Y is for. And so I can copy this, so YW, and now come here and put P, and see it just pasted it. And I forgot to put P in here. All right. We'll put that actually here and here and add this. We'll hit DD to delete this, and then come right here and paste it by hitting P, because that's where it would go. And I just use this, DD to delete. If I want, I come up here, P, U to undo, undo, delete word. See, I'm not in insert mode, so that's the difference between that and change word, which deleted it now lets me retype things. Get rid of that. I just wrote it, so I hit :W to write. If I want a new file name, I would put the file name here, but that's not what I want. I can escape to get back out of that. Sometimes I like to join lines, so maybe this line, I want the 2 lines. So let me do this to make it more clear what the distinction is between them. So if I just hit capital J, I brought the lower line up to this line and it left this space here. If I hit little g, capital J, then there's no space between the 2. So I use some combination of either one sometimes. So little u, and then that's what I've been doing is to undo. And like I said, if you want to write, you can hit :W, :Q quits, and that should be quit. So X, I forgot to put that. Let's do that for delete a word. Delete character under cursor. So many of these things I do, I don't even think about the fact I do them until I was demonstrating it for you. So I just quit. I typically write and then quit is what I do. So I'd hit :Q to get out. Let's go back into this. So that's the basics of Linux. Oh, here's one, excuse me, Vim. Here's one more thing I use a lot. I hit / and then type what you want to see, like CD. Well, let's put dir because there's lots of things. Dir. Now hit enter. Now I went to here, and you can see the dir. Now if I press lowercase n, it goes to the next occurrence. Right. So we'll add that. Right. So that was the basics of using Vim. Encourage you to track down one of the online tutorials and read those to maybe get more details. But something I've created that I've been using for a number of years, you can see I created in 2002. And it's really more of a reminder for me is a lot of those commands I just showed you. And this is a subset of what's out there. I mean, there's tons of things. There's also a visual mode where you can highlight things, but I rarely use that, so I don't have anything about that in here. But you can see all these different things that you can do. And there's some pattern here. So there's like CW, YW, DW, they all operate at the word level. So you can do those things. A lot of navigation things, you can jump sentences, paragraphs, sections, using certain characters. One of the things I did while I was typing was press Z. So if I can do something like this, like if I want to center around this, Z period. And it just center, because sometimes I'll say be here, and I press Z, lowercase z period, and now it puts it in center so I can see what I'm doing. Control F goes forward, that's what I just did there. So I'm sure I'll show you that here somewhere. Like I said, this is a subset of things you can do. When you're in command mode where you hit the colon, then you can type things to run other external commands. That's some of what I'm showing you here. Lots of regular expression examples. Regular expressions are a big topic and they're very useful, but I'm not really going to go into that. But at the simplest form, they do things like this, search and replace. So look into that if you're interested. So now let's do some basic Linux commands. So if I'm at the command line, I will do things. And so we'll see things like this, ls to list the contents of the directory. And you can see these are the files. But these are the things that don't begin with a period. Things that are called dot files, which begin with a period, are not shown by default. So if I type ls-a, then we see right here, .linux.txt swap. And that's being created by Vim over here as a way to recover if I accidentally lose power or something like that. So this will go away when I close this file. But that wasn't up here originally. But how do I know things like that? Well, I can look at the manual pages by typing man. So if I type man ls, and I'm going to press 1 now to get this, it shows me all these different command line options that exist. So if I hit the space bar, you see I'm scrolling down. Every one of these is some kind of command line option for just the ls command. And most of these commands will have various command line options. So there's really many hundreds of things you could do. All right? So Q to quit. So if I do ls-l, That's a long listing. So you can see here's the file names, but now I can see their sizes, the timestamp, the ownership, and permissions. This is ownership actually, and the permissions for those files and things like that. In my videos, you might see me do this sometimes, log, but what that really is an alias for this, ls-hogtr. So it puts it in human readable format. The T sorts it by time. R puts it in reverse mode, so the newest things are at the bottom. I don't remember what some of the other things do anymore. We can look them up by looking at the man page. But if I type log, you can say get this. So here's linux.txt, this file here, because that's the newest thing. And you can see this is sorted by time with the newest things at the bottom. All right. So what else? A lot of times we want to clear the window. I do that. We can cat files. Cat is short for, I think, catenate, which is really for concatenating. So it turns out there is a word, catenate. But one of the most common uses is just displaying the contents of a file like this. Cat, this file that I created earlier. And you see that. Now, one of the primary ways I use cat is to try to look for hidden characters. So if I type cat-tev and give it the name of the file again, you can see it looks different. So what's the differences? Well, right here, this indicates there's a tab character right here, whereas this could have been spaces if I was just looking at it that way, but I didn't know that. And then right here's a tab, and right here's a tab. The dollar signs show where the new line characters are at, so this shows that there's a new line right after the end of 3, but this shows there's a bunch of spaces after 6, which if I was just looking once again at this, I don't know if there's spaces here. So it's really helpful for things like that. And I used to have students compare output of my programs to their programs using the diff command. And so, for example, if I had something that looked like this, let's create a file over here. So let's do left. And actually, we'll call it left.txt. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do this. And now we'll create right.txt. 1 tab, 2, 3, 4. And actually I could do this and make them sort of look alike, but they're not quite alike. If I use the diff command, diff left and right, sorry, txt is the actual file names. That tells me they're different. But I'm not quite sure what the differences are, so I really could have done this. I'm going to use what's called a pipe, and which is send the output of this to this. And so now I can see, oh, there's 2 tabs in here, which versus spaces here. This had a bunch of spaces on the end. This has no space on the end. It makes it easier to tell what the underlying issues were. All right. If I want to rename a file, then I move it. So move left to new name. And there's new name now. And you can do the same thing for directories. So how do we make and create directories, everything? So make directory, say erase me. Now I can do CD to change directory. And I just hit tab to complete that. So if I do ls, you can see there's no files here. So here I could either do cd ... to move up a level, or if I do this cd dash, I just go back to wherever I came from, no matter how many levels away it is, which put me right back there. And it shows where this is at. So cd ... moves back. I want to remove that directory, but the directory has to be empty in order to move it. So rmdir erase me. If I want to know where I'm at, pwd is a current directory, or print working directory. That shows where I'm currently at. And then grep is extraordinarily useful. So grep stands for Global Regular Expression Parser. So I can do something like this, like grep dir in the Linux file, and it just found every match and then highlighted it. And if I was searching all my files, so let's say I do this, I want to do grep standard IO, because I know what's in this directory, standard IO.h, of all the star.c files. Here's all the files that contain that line, or that on a line. So it's incredibly useful for finding things within directories. So I've just barely touched the tip of the iceberg, both in terms of using Vim and also in terms of using Linux. There's entire books devoted to each. There's tutorials, lots of things to help you get up to speed. A lot more than you could teach in one video. But as I stated at the beginning of this video, I'm mainly doing this for people who, when they watch my programming videos, can better understand what it is I'm doing on the command line, because if you're new to Linux, then it's probably mind-blowing. And when I used to have a Mac, I would typically open up 2 terminal windows just like this and do everything from the command line as well. And occasionally I've done things on the Windows subsystem for Linux on my Windows computer, but not near as much as I have on these. All right, so that'll get you started, I think, if you've made it this far.